The Edmonton Oilers are next on our list to discuss. They have a lot of problems nipping at their heels. A lot of things considering their depth was a big problem throughout the playoffs last season. It was put on full display that behind McDavid and Draisaitl, if they're not producing, no one really was, and they got swept at the hands of the Winnipeg Jets. The offseason was a pretty good one from Ken Holland. On paper, I think we all agreed on this in our offseason predictions. I could be wrong, but at least I did. I thought they were a terrific team, a lot of upgrades on paper. They looked like they were fixing a lot of problems that they had to fix. Ken Holland had a terrific offseason, to say the least. Nothing generated from paper to the actual on-sheet ice. And no, they have not gotten depth scoring whatsoever. Even tonight with Draisaitl, he scored actually. So what am I saying? No, he got a point, he got a goal. And still not enough goals on the other side of it. They lose that game. So depth has not been there. Goaltending has not been there. They ranked on the bottom of the table with goals given up. I believe they give up 3 to 4 goals a game, something of that nature in the statistic realm. So they're not getting the puck is not getting out of the back of their net. Goaltending is a big problem. We saw the tweets and the comments from Dave Tippett and Mikko Koskinen, and we'll get into that in just a bit. But I don't know. There's so many problems nipping at the Edmonton Oilers. What would you guys put a pin on? What's the most important one to address? And mind you, they have a lot of things to a lot of things to not look forward to. They play one game until January 18th. That is against the Ottawa Senators, which is this week. So they play one game this week, and then they're off for quite some time. So is this a good thing or a bad thing for the Edmonton Oilers? And what is the problem that is nipping at their heels as of right now? The biggest one of them all. Jared, I'll go with you.
I mean, when you ask that question, I think the only argument you can maybe make that it's a good thing for them is because it gives time for Connor McDavid to get healthy. But in general, for a team that's kind of struggling with inconsistency, they're struggling to get their depth scoring going. I can't think of a much worse situation to be in, the fact that they aren't going to be playing games in quite a few weeks. So I don't love that. Again, there's the McDavid factor. But aside from that, as a team, I think that will probably do more harm than good. And as well, I don't like their team overall, even out of the offseason. I mean, because the Pacific Division is, in my opinion, the weakest one in the league, I picked them to finish, I believe, second in the division. But I never, looking at that roster, have a lot of confidence with them come playoff time. I think they're very much built to be top heavy. And of course, it's a good thing when you have two of arguably the best players in the world. But I don't think they have enough around them that I'm really not scared of their team whatsoever. And I think the way they're playing right now, with their goaltending not being able to pick it up, with their defense not really being able to shut things down, I think there's a lot of flaws with this roster. And I actually, as much as I'm really not a fan of, we're going to get into the coaching stuff, I'm really not a fan of how that situation was handled. Overall, I think the issue with their team is more to do with general manager situations than to do with the coaching, because I really think they have a flawed team. And I think it is up to their GM to step up and make the changes necessary, because right now, I don't think there are many teams in the league that are scared of the Edmonton Oilers right now. I just don't think they have depth from top to bottom of their lineup. I don't think they have enough depth whatsoever. I think that's really going to kind of bite them down the way. They obviously were lucky enough to start the season hot. So it maybe covered up a lot of the issues that I think some more better analytical hockey people were able to pick up, that there still was flaws with the team. But maybe the fans were they were bribed maybe by a couple early wins. But it's seeming like the problems just continue to kind of creep up on them. And I think if they don't fix something soon, you could see a lot of problems coming the Edmonton Oilers' way. I mean, you're already seeing that they haven't won a game, and now they've won 2 of their last 13 games. So I think that is incredibly worrying. But overall, I think they have a lot of work to do to kind of get them back going. They found a way to do it before at an earlier point in the season. So maybe they can find a way to do it again, but I don't like their roster from top to bottom. I don't like some of the things their coach is saying. And overall, I think they have a lot of work to do in making this a competitive team.
And I mean, I know we live in Ontario. We know how reality works. It's been hitting us extremely hard over the last couple of days, last couple of months, you name it. Reality has been hard hitting this past year. And reality has been hard hitting this past season for the Edmonton Oilers, because they start from a team that is so successful on the power play was their main strength, generating goals from there. And we thought that on paper, this team, I don't know about you guys. I don't want to speak for you guys. I'm sure you guys have different thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers, but at least for me, like I mentioned, I thought they had a terrific offseason, but I don't know. I don't see anything that scares the opposing teams when you're coming up against the Edmonton Oilers. Like if McDavid is not on that lineup, which he was not tonight, and Leon Draisaitl is left alone, I saw a lot of times where Leon Draisaitl is looking to his left and he doesn't got a player to pass to, or he doesn't got a pass to receive that's going to be like of the likes of Connor McDavid. It throws your entire sort of team off. There's different energy in the locker room with McDavid not there. I don't know. There's so many problems with this team defensively. A flawed team. And what is the answer that you would probably suggest, Jared, to fix this flawed team? Because I know trades in the middle of the season they come very few and in between. How do you get out of this rut? Because this could be a very permanent rut. We've seen teams that have had horrible starts to the year and haven't been able to recuperate themselves. Philadelphia Flyers kind of ring a bell to me, at least, where they had a bunch of big offseason acquisitions that nothing has ever worked for them. They fell on a bad streak at the beginning of the year and haven't been able to claw their way back. Edmonton Oilers, I don't think they're going to fall that low, but with a team with this many flaws, how do you do without getting a fix in there?
As much as I agree with what you're saying in that trades, especially big trades that shake up your whole roster, aren't too common at this point in the season, I still think that is the answer. And I think, sorry, they're still with Ken Holland, correct?
They are.
Yes.
Okay, I was just making sure before I blurted out that name and was about to get called an idiot all over online. So, yeah, Ken Holland, I thought so, but I was just making sure. Ken Holland, I think it's time that he needs to pick up the phone and make some calls. And as much as, yes, depth scoring is a huge issue, but if they could get another depth scorer, that would be amazing. But the biggest flaws that I notice on this team is defensively and in the goaltending department. So I think, to be honest, on offense, defense, and goaltending, I can pick apart a few flaws in this team. So I genuinely think there's a lot of work to do. And it's unfortunate because you could look at teams that are just bad from all throughout of their lineup. I wouldn't put Edmonton in that category, but I think they're, at this point, I'd call them a very mediocre team that, as much as they likely will end up making the playoffs, I don't really see them being very dangerous when they get there, once they get there. And that's very unfortunate because I'd love to see a superstar like McDavid or Draisaitl eventually lift the Stanley Cup. But with the team they have right now, I just don't know if they're built to do it. I really don't like the roster, if I'm being honest here. And I'm a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who for years had the reputation of being too heavy offensively, but maybe weren't good enough defensively to stop opposing teams. And I see a lot of those same problems with the Edmonton Oilers, even more so in some areas, I'd argue. And for that reason, I don't like what I'm seeing in front of me when looking at that roster. And I think for that reason, they have a lot of work to do in getting back to being more competitive.
Yeah, the Oilers are getting a bit old. I'm sure fans are fed up with this team simply because it's the exact same problem year in, year out, playoff round in, playoff round out. It's a collateral damage. Defense has always been the issue. Goaltending, at least for me, I don't remember to date a goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers that's been extremely successful. I don't remember a starting goaltender that's putting up all-star numbers. I don't know. It's been quite a while that I've seen an Edmonton Oilers goalie that's been capable of keeping a team afloat. Koskinen, Skinner, and Mike Smith, who I don't really like to bring up old things that I've said or things I've said in the past, but I was never high on Mike Smith just because that age, that injury tendency that he was having last season, and now it's spilled into this season. So I think we're just seeing the reality of what Mike Smith is and what a goaltender is, I guess, incapable of doing at that age. So goaltending is a big area of need that needs to be fixed. Rimoli, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you make of all the problems that are hitting the Edmonton Oilers? Both, it could be injuries too, because they've had a lot of things, but injuries is never something to complain about in the National Hockey League. All teams go through it. It's about the better teams that come out on the other end in a better position. So what do you make of problems nipping at the Edmonton Oilers?
I'll start with like the biggest thing that I'm not going to blame on the coach is goaltending. I'm sure, I don't know if we're going to discuss the Mikko Koskinen quote, but even like Mikko Koskinen is not a good goalie, and we know this. Like, I don't blame him for not stopping pucks because he's not good at it. So, like, don't blame him. Like, you're not going to get starting goalie numbers out of a average backup. And then Mike Smith is 40, man. Like, he should not be your starting goalie. How do you sign them for 2 years? They're getting below league average save percentage. They're going below league average goals against average. Like, I think I had it in front of me. Like, Koskinen is on like an 8.99 this season. Like, it's not good enough.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Does this team have cup aspirations? Do they have legit?
Any team with Connor McDavid should have cup aspirations.
So you head into season after season with cup aspirations, and you have this guy. You know how important goaltending is in this league. Look at every single Stanley Cup winner. I don't know how many years to go back because it doesn't even matter. Every single one. There's a hot goalie in the postseason, which is usually one of the rare things we see, or you have a goaltender that steers the ship. throughout the entire season. For Maple Leafs fans, it's a terrific accident because Jack Campbell is doing
He fell into our
terrific.
lap.
He's fell into our lap. We have him on a terrific deal as of right now. We'll kick that can down the road. But no, like goaltending is the main thing in the league that you need to be successful. This team has cup aspirations, so we can all agree on it. We all agree that they have cup aspirations with the player.
Well, Ken Holland disagrees.
Well, there we go.
That's
Get
the
right
issue
into it.
I have, because I don't know if you guys remember this, but Ken Holland's big thing and his big quote last season and the season before that is you can't go in every year. Which I agree with to a certain extent. To a certain extent, you probably shouldn't trade away all your first round picks. And, I like if the Leafs really wanted to, let's just send out Amarov, send out Robertson, trade Niemela, all of them, get back Forsberg, Hall, and build a super team. But that's unrealistic and never going to happen. So you can't go all in every single year, but you can trade a first round pick to go get a good guy. You can trade one of your prospects. If the Leafs traded Niemela, I'd be a little upset. But if they brought us back Dougie Hamilton, oh well, so like you said, a team with cup aspirations, or that should have cup aspirations. If you don't have cup aspirations with Connor McDavid, that's problem number one.
Something wrong.
That is problem number one. And I don't think I think they do have cup aspirations. I think they are trying to win the Stanley Cup this year, because how do you not with Connor McDavid? My issue is I think they're being a little bit too conservative, if that makes sense. I hear in the works that, not in the works, but the rumor is they're going after Ben Sherratt for a first round pick, it's not how you spend a first round pick. Please don't, Edmonton. Like I feel terrible for your fan base if you do. But I do want to see them, send a first round pick. Go get Philip Forsberg. He's on the last year of his deal. Go get, I don't know, why weren't you more aggressive on Taylor Hall? Like Taylor Hall would have went back. I'm 100% sure if Taylor Hall was traded to the Oilers and is playing beside Connor McDavid and puts up 30 goals, he's staying there. So my big issue with them is that, to answer your question, they're not in enough, to put it shortly.
They're not on the same page either. I think that's also something you're kind of trying to say as well. Management and the players, what they want, the coaching, everything is in cahoots. Not one person is on the same page of what they want. Listen, you're the Edmonton Oilers. Let's put into perspective what the Edmonton Oilers mean in hockey. They've had a terrific franchise history with the best player on the planet in Wayne Gretzky. They hoisted many cups, dynasty cups, with Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier.
4 years.
Yep, there was a terrific run. A lot of people I know, older generation, are Oilers fans for that reason. There's a huge fan base in Edmonton. Hockey is taken. I have never been to Edmonton, so I can't really say on personal experience, but what I hear in the hockey world, Edmonton is one of the metas of the hockey world. Everyone cares for that sport. Very passionate fan base. So you have that. You're not like a nobody team, nobody franchise that if you don't do something with the Stanley Cup aspirations that you have, we're not really going to care. Everyone is passionate about this team. You're the Edmonton Oilers. You have cup aspirations. You got the best player in the world last time out in 2, 3, 4 decades ago. You have the best player in the world right now. So you have the best player in the world. Start acting like a team that has the best player in the world and do something with it, because it's getting ridiculous. I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan saying this, and you guys know I like to put all biases aside when I talk on the podcast, but for Edmonton Oilers fans, it's got to be getting ridiculous. It's getting fed up because you have so much capital with your team. You have so many things that you can use to your advantage. You have decent picks. You have prospects that you can ship off and get a decent haul for. They're not doing any of it whatsoever. They're hesitant. And like I said before, they're not on the same page. So if you're the Edmonton Oilers, wake up, smell the coffee, and realize that there has to be a change. Jared, is that a coaching change? Is that a management change? What is it? Because it's coming close. The string, the leash, whatever you want to call it, whatever metaphor you want to use, it's coming down to a thread, because I don't know what's holding this team together anymore.
I think a coaching change is the more talked about thing in the media right now. But if I were to be steering the ship here, I'd be eyeing down a GM move, because I think Ken Holland is not the right guy to run this team. I don't think he, like you guys said, you guys absolutely nailed it. I don't think he understands the roster he has, and I don't think he understands how to make the roster he have take a step forward and become a true cup contender, which they absolutely should be with the talent they have. So in hearing what all you guys said, because I think both of you absolutely nailed it, I think GM is absolutely the move you have to do. You could talk about a coaching change as well. I don't like some of the things he said, whatever, but I don't think that's the most pressing issue right now. I think absolutely the way the team is constructed is the biggest problem on this team.
And I guess I'm going to ask this question right back to back. When does this happen? how bad does this hole have to be dug? How deep does this hole have to be dug for something to happen? Because I don't know. Do you see a GM change getting made in the middle of the season? I think it might have to be, but do you see it happening in Edmonton? They're not known for sacking guys in the middle of the year when they don't have to. I don't know. Like, when do you do it?
I think it would make sense. I don't think it'll happen because I think a move like that is just very unlikely. It's like the, I guess, best case scenario because it's like you're trying to forward this, not rebuild, but you're trying to like jumpstart the team into actually striving to be competitive. So I think it should happen as soon as possible, but it's just very unlikely that that actually takes place just because aside from issues where a team is very much like their season's done for, how often do you see a GM or a coaching change? And I mean, obviously you're looking at a few weeks ago already, Vancouver, but that was a very much like a worst case scenario. The team was absolutely in shambles, and that's why that was the move they made. I don't think Edmonton's quite there. However, they're definitely treading down that road. If this continues, then you have to make that decision, I'd say, sooner rather than later.
And I think for me, it's the history. There's too much history with this team where they've been treading down that rabbit hole so often, more often than not, I think we should say, because they've never been reaping any rewards from any of their seasons. I don't care what getting into the playoffs means. You have a team that it's not even on the table. You have to get getting into the playoffs with a team like that in division like they are in right now in the Pacific. Not to say it's a bunch of bad teams, but it's a weaker division of the in the NHL. So that's a must. This team needs change right now, I think. I don't think you have to wait for the offseason to come. And if it gets even worse, you have to pick up the shovel throw down the shovel because they're constantly bringing themselves and digging themselves their own grave with so much talent. This is what I hate, watching wasted potential, wasted talent go down the drain. And at least for me right now, goalie, I think is the biggest reason. The biggest thing that they have to address is a goalie. Where are you going to find a goalie? A lot of the teams nowadays, homegrown goaltending is the big thing we're seeing in the NHL. So many young goaltenders starting to make their debuts with their clubs and sort of starting to shine. Igor Shesterkin, we're going to get into him a lot because he's been working wonders down in the Big Apple. He's a big attest to that. But no, it's not about signing goaltenders here and there, getting rental goaltenders like the Edmonton Oilers have been doing for years on end. It's about growing one from house. I think Stuart Skinner. There you go. I think he is, if I'm not mistaken, he was drafted by the Oilers or he is a homegrown talent. You are praying that he's the next Messiah for this team because he's going to be tested with it throughout this season and the ones in the future. The Edmonton Oilers need a goaltender, and I think right now is to pull the trigger because it's the main problem nipping at their heels. I don't know. Is there anything else to say about this group? Because I think we're just running in circles, and I want to get into the coaching comments right now if you guys are all done talking about the Oilers because so much to talk about, so many problems nipping at them. It's incredible which direction this Edmonton Oilers team can go towards. And I'm hoping at least just from a hockey standpoint, because I want to see McDavid one day lift the cup. He deserves it. No player on earth is better than him, at least in my opinion. I'm sure we can all agree on that here. I want to see him get rewarded with this team. And I don't know, right now, they're not in the great headspace to do it. I don't think they're in the right headspace to do it. But let's get into the coaching stuff. Again, Jared, I kind of agree with you. I don't think it's a coaching thing right now, but the comment that he made was a little controversial on Twitter. And I don't disagree. Sorry, I don't agree with it too much on Dave Tippett's side, just because ripping on Stuart Skinner is really bad. All right, Stuart Skinner. Koskinen, he is a very inconsistent goalie. I am not a fan of him. He has played himself out of Edmonton. There's been nothing positive about his game, so he deserves criticism, all the criticism he's getting. But if to blame it all on him, I think is the wrong message that you're sending as a coach, especially in a time like this where the tensions are hot in the locker room, so much uncertainty with people's jobs. It's not the best thing, especially coming off a huge break like that as well. Not the best energy to have. Dave Tippett. If you don't know about the comments, go look him up on Twitter. It'll be the first thing you see when you type in Dave Tippett's name. I'm sure he's trending on Twitter as we speak. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts in the comments? Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong here? Adam, I'll start with you and I'll make your way to Jared.
So the big thing about this comments is that his last 6 losses. In his last 6 losses, the Edmonton Oilers have scored 7 goals. Mm-hmm. In the last 6 losses, he has given up, I think, 24 goals, which both are bad. So you can't win like that. I feel bad for not Stuart Skinner. Well, him too, but Mikko Koskinen, because as much as he's playing shit. This supposed high flying offense is not doing that. So you're paying, you shouldn't expect, like I said before, you shouldn't expect a bad goalie to be good, because he is not a good goalie. This is simple. So the fact that if you're Dave Tippett, you should be looking at, the other 23 skaters that put up 7 goals in 6 games over your not good goalie playing not good. So that's my quick thoughts on it.
Jared, what about you? What do you got on the rundown with this situation?
Yeah, well, I completely agree with what Adamo said, first of all. But just to move farther with it, I just think, especially when it comes to a goaltender where confidence is such a big part of the equation, I just think it was such a bad way to handle that situation. Like, you could have that same conversation in a little bit more motivating of a way, and maybe not in public in front of the media, in front of the hall microphone. Like, I just think there was a way better method of going about that situation to motivate your goaltender, because I just think it was absolutely the wrong way to handle it. And I would not expect comments like that, especially the way he took it, where he kind of clapped back in the media. It doesn't sound like that's what's working to motivate him. If anything, it sounds like it's making him mad and making him not even want to play for this coach. So I think it was a very unfortunate word choice from him. I understand goaltending has to carry a lot of the blame because it simply hasn't been good enough. There's a better way of getting more out of your goaltender that isn't our goalie played horrible and that's the reason we lost. Like, I think there has to be a middle ground. You have to go about it a different way. And I just think it was very unfortunate the way that was handled. And just a little bit of a note, because my brother played goaltender, like when he was just playing like Fort Hill Rebels, like select hockey. He was a goalie, so I kind of asked him what are his thoughts on that. Like, what if, because my dad was my dad was his coach. So I was like, what if dad were to pull you aside or even in front of like a crowd and say something like that? And he's like, well, I'd be freaking pissed. Like, I'd be so deflated. I'd be so like, and as much as, yes, in my situation, it's a father-son relationship, still in this situation, that's the coach. That's supposed to be the leader on your team, the one that you're all fighting for and playing for. And I just think he absolutely went about that the wrong way. And there's a reason that, at least from the sounds of it sounds like he's lost the room at this point, which is just a shame, because I think they should be able to be a lot better than this. And I don't know. I really don't like that, as much as what I said earlier. Like, I think Ken Holland's much more of a problem right now than Dave Tippett. But I really did not like the way that was handled, and I was not a fan of that whatsoever.
So to recap here, I think we all agree that goaltending is the big problem, the huge problem nipping at the Edmonton Oilers. But again, there's a factor of other problems that sort of swarm into the equation here, because the offense hasn't been producing behind McDavid. And you can even bring in those two superstars. I know they haven't been doing too terrific as of late during this cold stretch, but again, the offense behind them has not been bailing them out whatsoever, and the defense on that end point hasn't been too great as well. So those are the problems there. Goaltending is a big one. And for the coaching perspective, I played a lot of years in sports. I played hockey. My dad was a trainer, so we had a pretty coach-son relationship there. I've played baseball, probably more passionate sport. And personally, for me, if I'm Koskinen, I handle criticism well. If someone's screaming in my face and calling me out in front of a large crowd, I will respond. That's personally how I deal with it. Goaltenders, like you mentioned, Jared, are probably the weirdest people on the planet. Like left-handed pitchers in baseball, they have no clue how to deal with themselves. Zach Greinke is a left-handed pitcher in baseball, and he called his back catcher to a Mount visit and discussed a fantasy football trade. So there was a lot of things wrong. That did happen. It is confirmed. He said it himself in an interview. A lot of things wrong with left-handed pitchers and goaltenders. That aside, and my bias against them aside, because I couldn't hit against left-handed pitchers, quite evidently, the curve could not handle me. But putting that all aside, mentality for these two positions, hockey more in particular of a goaltender, it's totally off the charts. It takes a different human being. You have to be calm on the inside. Calm, cool, collective is the metaphor everyone uses, and it's absolutely true, because you have to have a cool mind, and you have to just roll with the punches. Koskinen and Tippett, you have burned a bridge right now. And Koskinen's not going to forget the word that you said, Dave Tippett. And Dave Tippett, it's not going to be, you're losing a lot of trust in this goaltender. What it reminds me of, and maybe you guys do remember this, totally different time periods, with the Maple Leafs when they were in the gutter in 2015, 2014, those years, I think it might have been 2014. James Reimer was on the team. Randy Carlyle had a post-game interview, and Reimer was throwing saves out there, trying to give him a fighting chance, but he got lit up. And a lot of it wasn't his fault. Randy Carlisle, they asked him how he thought Reimer played. He's like, oh, I thought he played just okay. And Reimer goes the other way on the other side of the reporters. He's like, he thought I just played okay. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. And there was a full lack of trust between the coach and the goaltender. And that is a doomsday weapon for teams. You do not want to go there. You don't want to touch it. And like you mentioned, Jared, the forbidden words as a coach, you have lost the room. So I think it was horrible remarks on Tippett's part. You should know heading into the season, it doesn't take a press conference to prove this, how to push your players, which buttons to push. Those were not the right ones with Mikko Koskinen. And I'm sure he's going to regret it. He tried to clear up his comments, but a lot of people weren't buying it. So I don't know. You mentioned, Jared, that Ken Holland's on a bit of a hot seat right now. Dave Tippett is pretty close behind him, and Edmonton Oilers group. I don't think we're going to spend too much more time on them because I think we just nailed everything on the head. These guys are all in a pretty bad spot. It's up if the team is truly, if they know what they're made of, they will come out of it successfully, and they will learn from this and take away from this and put into results. But this Edmonton Oilers team has been scarred too many times, far more times than many other teams. And it's just all up in the air right now. How is this team going to react with this adversity dealt with them? And this 4-2 loss to the Maple Leafs tonight, just another dish to serve.